They didn't say it like a dare. They said it like a party trick. To test his loyalty, one of her friends laughed, tilting a glass. Eyes went to her, not me. She didn't laugh. She drifted eyes a fraction out of focus, smile on a delay, like she was already watching a scene that hadn't happened yet. That distant look crossed the table and kept going. I wasn't angry. I was alert. The table hummed. Someone repeated a line that got applause. My wife sat in the middle like a host, present and elsewhere. When a friend asked about our next weekend away, she answered with a breezy memo. He's married to his schedule. To them, concern, to me, groundwork. The dare didn't start with the joke. It started with the framing. I didn't perform. I asked the guy beside me what he was building and listened. The current shifted. I felt her glance, a neat sideways check. Will he play the role? I let small talk starve the test. She loosened her hair slow, deliberate. Her fingers tapped the glass stem in even count tempo, not nerves. A whisper from across the table, make it spicy, raised the temperature. I asked the server about the sparkling and actually listened. I asked the quietest person to follow up and waited. The room bent towards something else. She watched, expression neutral, eyes still far away. When they finally landed on me, they carried appraisal, not warmth. How difficult will you be to direct tonight? A circle game began. Say one admirable thing about the person to your left. When it reached her, she turned a little toward me but kept her shoulders to the group. He's very consistent, she said. Even when things get chaotic, you can count on him to stay. Laughter scattered like coins. I nodded as if accepting a calendar invite. A vacation story detoured into a soft jab at me, deniable as harmless. She checked my face for the flinch. I traced the condensation ring on my glass and let the moment pass. Stillness isn't retreat. It's refusal. If I snapped, they'd call it proof. If I sulked, they'd call it confirmation. Either way, the story would print the same. So I went still. She leaned close enough for perfume to register and performed concern. You okay? She asked, voice pitched to be overheard. I let the pause breathe. I'm observant, I said, and returned to my plate. Her laugh arrived late and too bright at a joke no one told. On the ride home, streetlights scanned the windshield. She tapped the wheel, called me charming, and set the word between us like a place card. I let it sit. Her jaw tightened, relaxed, tightened again. When I looked over, she kept her eyes forward. Back at the house, she touched surfaces without settling. A lamp straightened by a millimeter, a coat shifted by inches, a mirror checked twice. She asked if I was still mad about the joke, but didn't wait for an answer. I stood in the doorway and ran the night like a ledger, the memo tone, the whisper to make it spicy, the delayed smiles, the distant eyes that never returned to where I was sitting. She went to bed early. I stayed at the table and wrote the sequence while it was sharp. Not to arm a fights are noisy and forgettable, but to keep a record. When the house quieted, I listened to the refrigerator tick like a clock and stared at the doorway she'd brushed with her shoulder on the way upstairs. The test had failed before it began, not because I misread the rules, but because I stopped auditioning and started working. Secrecy didn't arrive with a scene, it arrived with settings. Overnight, her phone learned new tricks, longer passcode, new face profile, notifications collapsed into a polite. She parked it face down. When it buzzed, she skimmed the preview with practiced indifference. The calendar changed next. Names became initials. Dinners became D. Meetings were M. Twice I saw her LS, a pin near the hour she stepped outside for calls. When I asked how her week looked, she offered a warm summary with zero nouns with her, not detail. On the counter sat the jade-green fountain pen we usually kept in a drawer for leases, school forms, certified things. It migrated to the keys bowl and then to her tote. She clicked the cap during a call, the metallic tap setting a tempo I hadn't heard since exam season. She even signed delivery slips with it. The pen wasn't a tool now. It was a signal that paperwork had moved from occasional to daily. Habits stacked. Speaker only when I left the room. Screens tilted away. No saved as images so text couldn't be searched. She asked offhand whether we still had the notary's card from last year. None of it is proof. Its powder lines discreet enough to dismiss, clear enough to see. I noticed a second plotline writing itself in the margins. She mentioned updating paperwork like steam on a mirror. Taxes began dinner talk with jokes about thresholds. I said I could block an hour to help. She smiled and said she preferred to organize first, resting 2 fingers on the jade pen as if to steady the sentence. The laptop began to travel desk to kitchen island to passenger seat. Calls migrated to the garage for better signal. Her positioning told me more than her words, always the screen angled away. Small tellers stacked up. Receipts forwarded to an inbox I didn't recognize. A new line in her email block: consulting, project base, a phrase that could mean everything or nothing. When I asked, she said she was experimenting with tone for resume and let the conversation fade on the counter. At night, alarms toned at 12:17 a.m., then 2:14, then quiet. In the morning, she said a sleep app was testing cycles. The smile didn't reach her eyes. She tucked the jade pen under a stack of mail, then pretended she hadn't. I adjusted by measuring. I watched how she moved through rooms, favoring corners where reflections fail. I listened for the pen cap. I tracked the initials in her calendar. I didn't accuse. I documented. There's a difference between being passive and being precise. One afternoon, after a call that ended mid-word when I stepped in, she asked, too lightly, if our digital drive still auto-synced everything. I said yes because yes was true. She nodded at the window, gave me a look that wanted to be forgettable. 2 days later, she brought home manila folders labeled in a tight, careful hand: house, studio, school, insurance. They weren't about storage, they were distance markers. She placed the stack by the door where light hits in the afternoon and set the jade pen on top. When I picked it up, the balance was different. She'd refilled it. That night, I wrote a different kind of note: times, places, phrases that didn't sound like hers. The more I wrote, the more I saw how random drift was choreography. Not a storm schedule. Not a dare among friends, steps practiced quietly, the music turned low. And at the center, like a metronome, the pen clicked time I could count with my eyes closed. It was the sound first, the cheerful ping that means the cloud inhaled something new. My laptop woke by itself, a blue badge bloomed on photos. I wasn't searching. I clicked anyway. At the top of recent sat a 2-second loop, her wrist, a gleam, the jade-green fountain pen held like a baton. Forward, back the boomerang bounced, glasses clinked, light skim, ballwood. Laughter looked like light, not sound. Caption: experiments. The setting could be anywhere: tile, brass silhouettes. A herringbone sleeve I didn't recognize flickered in the corner. I watched the small details the way you watch a suspect line on a graph. Her bracelet tightened above the bone, a faint green dot by her index cuticle, the mark from capping a pen in a hurry. Her mouth formed a word: cheers or clear. The loop wouldn't choose. Technically, there was nothing there. He bought toast, tried camera toys, and posted the circle still standing beside them. Experiments could be a recipe, lighting, a joke. It's a word she uses when she wants room without apology. It fits anywhere. Metadata was less delicate, created late the night before, uploaded just after dawn, sliding into our cloud beside screenshots and a folder labeled studio. The system cares about time, not tone. She came downstairs with the GA pen tucked behind her ear, a new habit. Seeing the open laptop, she shaved her path by inches to pass behind me. "Where'll we start?" she asked, setting a mug so gently it made no sound. "Catching up," I said, letting the screen go black. Her eyes skimmed the dark glass anyway. The bottom envelope carried a notary's seal, her thumb rested on, embossed like a bookmark. I didn't mention the video. I asked how the mocktail mix turned out. She blinked once, a reset, then smiled. "Good," she said. "We're trying combinations." She lifted the jade pen as punctuation, tapping it against her knuckle. The tap matched the clink still running in my hit. Later she signed for her delivery, the handheld screen catching a thin green stroke that turned routine ceremonial. She wiped the pen on a tissue, folded it twice, then pushed it under coffee grounds. At lunch, she slid an article about digital signatures across the island. "They say fonts change trust," she said, pausing on samples. When this greened, and she laid the jade pen across the phone. "We should standardize," she added. That night the loop played when the room went dark. Wrist, pen, lights, the word that wouldn't settle in. I asked if I was building a museum exhibit out of a napkin sketch. The clean answer was yes. The honest answer was I didn't know. I added to my notes, "Clip pen experiments time split." In the morning, she passed behind me and pressed her palm on my back for half a second longer than necessary. "You're consistent," she said, offering it as praise and probe. I nodded. By afternoon, a tiny ink bloom appeared near the pen's clip. She caught me noticing. "Refill leakage," she said, mildly annoyed at the object. I accepted it. It explained something, if not the thing that counted. I followed the clip, not as proof, as orientation. North isn't fate, it's direction. If asked, I could speak in ordinary terms. She went out. They toasted. She made a loop. The cloud swept it up. True enough. Meanwhile, the green metronome on her desk kept time, and I could hear it even when the room was quiet. That isn't evidence. That rhythm a map that hints where the road might bend next. The stronger proof didn't bang on the door. It appeared in our shared drive at 2:14 a.m., tagged to an IP the system called unknown. I saw it at lunch, 2 PDF between a recipe and the dentist form of draft custody and lease addendum studio. I opened the fuss and felt my chest shift a notch. The custody draft spoke in courtroom courtesy, provisional schedule, temporary exchanges, conditions around travel. My name lived inside clauses I'd never heard. At the bottom, near consent boxes, my initials perched in a font I don't use. Too dark, too tight, slightly left of center. Not my hand. The idea of my hand. Metadata confirmed the time, 2:14 a.m. Revised twice, origin unknown. The lease addendum wore the same smile. Access shifted to her studio. Comments in the margin used my name as if I'd left them. Confirm. Oh, fine by me. I don't write like that. I either say nothing or write exact phrases. The tone here leaned casual where I stand upright. I didn't explode, I outlined. Date, file names, timestamps, odd font. Then I looked at her desk. A printout sat under her paperweight. Green ink pooled out upon her jade fountain pen's hue. The hard copy carried her hand, the digital tried to borrow mine. Legal tension wasn't a whisper anymore. It had color. She came in with 2 bowls and a practice calm. Her eyes took the screen, then my face. "Those are drafts," she said, setting the bowls like props. "My friend said it's better to model options so we can be adult about it." "I didn't add these," I said, tapping the initials. My voice stayed level. "They're placeholders," she answered, sliding the jade pen beside the keyboard without looking at it. Fonts helped me visualize. Placeholders don't sit next to consent boxes. The pen caught a bar of sun, a thin ring of dried green, and hugged the cap. She softened. "I want to avoid misunderstandings," she said, palms open. "Bones first, then details. Your consistent, messy beginnings stress you out. Consistency isn't rigidity, it's record." I saved both PDF to folder data today, screenshotted metadata, copied revisions, emailed myself copies. Paper over impulse. She adjusted a coaster that didn't need it. "Let's not escalate," she said. "Everyone explores options. Exploring doesn't require my initials." The pen sat between us like a small witness. She left for a walk. I printed the signature page and filed it with passports. At a glance, the faux initials looked real enough for a tired clerk. That detail cooled the room. I wiped the counter, then wrote a question at the top of a fresh note. "What do these documents assume about me?" I answered that I'll accept a schedule I didn't design, ratify a property change I didn't request, react loudly enough to be labeled unreasonable. I underlined the last point. If the story needs noise to function, silence is control. When she returned, she carried a solution. We'll go through it when it's less busy, she said. She moved the jade pen again without noticing. I closed the laptop, not as a truce as a timestamp. Later, I said. Placement, not delay. The second plotline clauses, boxes, fonts 214 AM, stood in open view. For the first time since the dinner there, I stopped negotiating with a possibility and accepted the paperwork in front of me. Then I wrote one word at the bottom of the page, proceed. The lever didn't come from her, it came sideways. Midday. One of her friends texted with a phony opener about a recipe I've never cooked, then added, "Are you switching Thursdays?" I saw it in the chat. I asked what chat. 3 dots stalled, then a breathy memo. It was light, a dare-time study, nothing serious. Screenshots followed, a thread with a jokey title about loyalty tests and a pinned line, "Let's see if he notices changes without being told." Below, bullet points disguised as games, swap up, pick up, blur plan, answer without nouns. A voice I recognized typed, "He's consistent, press on routine." My name floated through it like Costark. Another image showed our kids' weekly grid, pink circles around times I hadn't agreed to move. A second photo stopped beneath the jade-green fountain pen on a table beside 2 blank signature lines. Caption, in green makes it official. In a window reflection, a shoulder I knew leaned in, adjusting the angle like product photography. I called the friend back, voice level. "Is there more?" She said she thought it was pretend until real date shifted. I told her to stop, she added. "Please don't say I sent this." I thanked her and saved the images to a folder named with today's date, then backed it up twice. They used to experiment like a disinfectant. The thread applauded minor chaos, admired how I stayed calm when answers drifted. One suggested a new step, add paperwork pressure, font spook him. Another, make him defend his calm. He'll look controlling. Stakes changed when the grid touched our kid. I printed the pen photo and set it beside the actual pen on the counter. The shade matched, the intent didn't. She came in from a call, paused at the door when she saw the print. "You're home early," she said. Her eyes skimmed the page and kept moving. "Someone sent me something," I said, not lifting the paper. She washed a clean glass and dried it. "People love drama," she said, setting it back exactly where it started. "I know," I said. "I also know when a schedule moves without me." She rolled the jade pen, clicked once, then placed it on her right, the side she reserves for items she claims. 2 calendar alerts I didn't create flashed and vanished that afternoon. I photographed the lock screen and emailed the school with neutral wording to confirm pickup times. The reply repeated the adjusted window from the chat, per your note. I asked for the note. 10 minutes later, a PDF arrived with my name misinitialed at the bottom. Not proof, but weight concentrating. By evening, a boomerang of clinking glasses went up from another friend. The jade pen came out at the frame's edge. Caption, "This is going to be good." I added it to the folder. Risk was no longer a theory. It was an office relying on a message I didn't send, a crowd being trained to see steadiness as control, and a pen staged beside lines waiting to be filled. I wiped the counter and laid the printed chat beside the earlier drafts. That night I packed a travel bag with essentials for our kid. The schedule we actually follow. Prescriptions, release rules, a USB labeled today. Not because I plan to leave, because custody doesn't wait for moods. I logged times and underlined too, when friends started operating my week and when our child's hour became a lever. The jade pen lay where she'd set it. I didn't touch it. The click from earlier kept time while I returned to the ledger and dated a single line, stakes, now. The twist didn't have fireworks, it had routing numbers. A morning alert blinked a transfer scheduled with initials that matched her calendar, LS, a sweep from joint savings to an account I'd never seen. The amount wasn't big, just deliberate enough to move, not ring alarms. In the bank app 2 earlier, test transfers snapped into focus, tiny amounts sent at 2:14 AM, returned before dawn limits, feeling for edges. Today sat pending with a memo, studio continuity. I saved it and filed. Minutes later, our shared drive posted consent transfer and access PDF. A notary seal from a third-party office I've never visited stamped the page. The letter said I approved new signers and ownership shifts to expedite clarity. My name looked right until it didn't. Stiff typeface, the R's tail wrong from my hand. The certificate touted a video witness and a session ID I didn't recognize. Date 2:14 a.m. Origin, remote. The signature line wore a uniform stroke no pen makes. On the island sat a paper copy. The jade-green fountain pen had dotted the page beside the seal, a bright speck. She came in, posture neutral. I uploaded it so you wouldn't chase links, she said. Boring logistics, you said you hate that. I didn't attend this session, I said, tapping the certificate number. That's not my hand. She touched the pen with one fingertip. They use templates, she said. Placeholders. We can update later. I was protecting your time. By moving assets. My voice stayed level. It's planning, she said. The studio carries risk. If anything happened, you'd thank me for being ahead. You're consistent, but not nimble. The bank pinged again. New authorized user added. The name matched LS, not a friend, an entity. I called the number. A receptionist put me on hold. The notary said identity had been captured, and the session matched fields. I requested a statement on letterhead and the audit trail. They agreed to send the packet. She made tea she wouldn't drink, serving an empty cup. Can we not turn this into a scene? She asked. I'm trying to avoid misunderstandings. You created a record that says I agreed, I said. She reached for the pen, then stopped. Tentative agreed, she said. Drafts help adults avoid chaos. You are going to say yes, this just speeds the road. In the insurance portal, a beneficiary change sat queued for the studio policy. Owner approval received. My name Clipshore. Chippy showed labels preprinted to an address I didn't recognize. Small moves linked forming a route. I looked at the green dot by the seal. Proof is rarely cinematic. Sometimes it's a speck of pigment where only black should be. She squared the cup with the gray outline. You always want clarity, she said. This is clarity. Clarity doesn't arrive at 2:14 a.m. Wearing my name in someone else's work, I said. The outline was plain. Dare, drift, stage tests, then paperwork arranged so arrival reads as consent. I filed a letter, the screens, the call log, and emailed copies to myself because clouds get edited when feelings do. I wasn't frightened. I was done negotiating with shadows. The deeper story wasn't romantic, it was administrative forms building a corridor designed to make me late to my own signature. In my ledger I wrote, assets in motion, consent forged, notary remote, session ID captured. Then I underlined 2 words, build sequence. I didn't stay to scene. I scheduled a meeting. Friday, noon at the island. I set water, legal pad, and the folder I'd built, screenshots in order, audit logs, bank alerts, a notary statement, and 3 samples of my signature. The jade-green fountain pen waited at the edge cap on. She arrived with her neutral face, the neighbor face. What's this? She asked, setting her phone face down on the grout. Sequence, I said, sliding the folder across. We'll start with timestamps. First page cloud log, 2:14 a.m. Creation of the custody draft. Then the lease addendum at 2:17. Then the remote notarization session ID, same hour. Bank transfer queued at dawn. These events connect, I said. She tilted her head. You've always wanted clarity, she said. This is us being adults. I set down the notary's letter confirming no in-person visit and that the signer's IP trace to a carrying space coursed down. I added the bank's email, a new authorized user added, and the school's reply citing a note I didn't send. Her eyes skimmed the edges. Drafts, she said. Placeholders. Everything could still be discussed. I laid my signature samples beneath the digital initials. That's my hand, I said, tapping the real ones, and that is not. She reached for the jade pen, habit more than need. I placed my palm over it and kept it there. We'll proceed by the book, I said. "You're making this heavy," she said. It was a joke that got bureaucratic. My friends made it bigger. I turned a page, chat screenshots. The grid circling our kids' hours, the bullet list labeled A experiments, the photo of the J pen beside blank lines. "This isn't a joke," I said. "This is a lever, and this," I touched the green dot by the seal, "is a record." "You could have asked instead of building a case," she said, lifting her phone and setting it down again. "You make people feel audited." "I asked," I said. "You gave weather, I'm giving time." She straightened. "Fine," she said. "What do you want?" "Corrections," I said. A statement from the notary appending the session as invalid, letters to the bank and insurer reversing changes, an email to the school confirming the true schedule, and a message to the chat closing the dare. "Today." She blinked. "You are overreacting." "This already touched real hours," I said. "Overreaction is loud, this is quiet." I slid over a prepared note with exact phrasing. "Copy this, send from your account." "And if I don't?" "Then we'll still proceed by the book," I said. "But the book gets longer." Something in her steadiness loosened. She picked up the J pen by reflex. I met her hand with mine and kept the pen. "Use the keyboard," I said. She nodded once. I opened the laptop to a blank email addressed to the school, then to the bank, then to the insurer. She typed, "Careful." When the notary portal loaded, she froze at reason. "Error in identity," she typed. "Session invalid." Send. She stared at the thread where my name floated like a prop. "Closing this now," she wrote. "It isn't a game." Read receipts cascaded. I dated each correction in my ledger. No speech. "We're okay then?" she asked. "We're documented," I said. "That's different." I capped the jade pen and put it in my pocket. The metronome didn't click. Control returned to its rightful owner, just organized enough that the story she'd been writing stopped mid-sentence and waited for the next page to set the margins. The order arrived like a weather change clean font, heavy paper, clipped language that pressed everything into shape. The court reviewed the sequence, the corrections, the notary's invalidation, the bank reversals, the school's confirmations. They didn't care about tone. They cared about time. Primary custody to me, a clear schedule pinned to actual hours, exchanges locked to a location with cameras and a clipboard. No speeches. Just the structure I had been told I was too rigid to require. At the hearing, she wore neutral colors in the neighbor face. Her side used words like placeholders and miscommunications, and experiments. Mine used exhibits numbered in black ink and pages that knew where they were going. The judge called it administrative confusion corrected by documentation. Personal accountability rarely needs sound, it needs dates. Afterward, I picked up our child from school and drove the slow route home, the one with the long light that gives you time to breathe. The travel bag with essentials stayed by the door but packed lighter. Routine was no longer a dare, it was a sign map. I put the certified order in a folder and scanned it twice, once to the cloud and once to a drive that doesn't sync. Her friend shifted to low power mode. A couple sent careful messages about hoping it calms down. One sent a late apology and an earlier screenshot she hadn't meant to keep. I didn't answer. The thread that once used my name as a toy went quiet on me and kept humming among them. She tried a new story in the days after. We were stress testing communication. In that version, she was measuring my steadiness for everyone's good. In another, she was protecting assets from hypothetical mess. Both versions kept my name in the box labeled agreeable unless stubborn. I didn't argue. I forwarded the order when logistics required it and copied only the lines that moved time and place. At home, small rituals returned without fanfare. The basketball after homework, the snack plate hit the counter at the same angle. Friday shirts went back to being funny instead of coded. When questions about schedules came up, I answered with a printed page, not a mood. Control isn't performance. It's alignment. The jade-green fountain pen stayed in my pocket until the day the order landed. Then I set it on the table beside the embossed seal, cap on. Her hand hovered, reflex ready to correct a coaster or straighten a picture. She didn't pick it up. The pen wasn't a tool anymore. It was a mirror she didn't want to look into. We met once more to exchange items. The house had been halting in trust, keys duplicated during the fog, a stack of mail that thought it lived somewhere else, the studio pass that needed a new lanyard. She asked what I wanted. The question sounded like a password she hoped I'd forget so the old door would open. Quiet, I said, not unkind and not kind. Just precise. I left the certified order where the afternoon light hits, and I placed the jade pen parallel to the bottom edge, neat enough to be measured. She stood still in a room that had loved movement. I didn't offer a lesson or a speech. The schedule will do that work without me. I stepped to the door, felt the hinge settle, and heard the smallest click from the pen cap warming in the light. The only sound left was the story she couldn't sign anymore.